My name is Boma Brown-West, and I am delighted to moderate today's discussion. I'm Senior Manager of Consumer Health at EDF Plus Business. As part of our EDF Plus Business supply chain team, I lead our mission to leverage the power of high-impact companies to develop and use safer chemicals in consumer products. It continues to be exciting to work with my team and influential supply chain actors to make the products we use every day safer, healthier, and more sustainable. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. This is clearly a hot topic looking at all the participants on the line. We're happy to have folks from across the product value chain here with us today. Okay, let's move to the next slide. This is just a little information about our EDF Plus Business team. Okay, next slide, please. Many of us came to this issue because we know and appreciate the complexity of the problem. Tens of thousands of chemicals in the marketplace have not been adequately evaluated for potential harm to people and the environment. At the same time, we know that exposures to certain chemicals are linked to a wide array of health impacts, including cancer, birth defects, and developmental problems. Growing awareness of these health concerns across the globe has prompted market demand for greater information and safer chemicals in products, as we can see in the stats on the current slide. Recent steps by major retailers, including Walmart, Target, and CVS, are pressing product manufacturers to produce safer formulations. However, we have a long way to go, as it's not always easy for product manufacturers to replace problematic ingredients with safer alternatives. EDF's recent report, Smart Innovation, tackled this topic, focusing in on preservatives, a functional class of major concern. Although the challenge is daunting, all of the speakers today are committed to playing a role to continuously improve product safety for consumers. One piece of the puzzle is knowing where the innovation opportunities exist, and one of the keys is making more information available. We will discuss the ways that our speakers are making a difference to improve chemical safety, and then discuss some proposed solutions to improving information in the supply chain. I'm looking forward to today's discussion because of the insights we'll gain from actors across the value chain, from retailer to brand to innovator to public health advocate. So let's get started by meeting today's exciting panelists. Next slide, please. Thank you. Please note that the full biographies of our panelists are in the webinar handouts on your dashboard. But since we have such a distinguished group today, here are some brief highlights on their relevant contributions to this work. Zach Fries is the Senior Director of Special Initiatives and Sustainability at Walmart. He is responsible for product sustainability in Walmart's general merchandise and consumables categories, working on supply chain initiatives such as making factories more efficient in China and leading Walmart's commitment to sustainable chemistry. So far on that front, they have achieved a 96% weight reduction in high priority chemicals. In addition, Zach recently helped to launch Walmart's historic Project Gigaton, an unprecedented effort to reduce a gigaton of greenhouse gas emissions through the supply chain by 2030. EDF is happy to count Walmart as a strong partner in making retail products and supply chains safer and more sustainable. Next, we have Martin Wolf, the Director of Sustainability and Authenticity at Seventh Generation, a manufacturer and distributor of household and personal care products. Martin is responsible for ensuring the design of sustainable products at Seventh Generation. Martin has developed frameworks for environmental product design and promoted more sustainable, more transparent systems of commerce. And in the public policy arena, has advocated for health protective chemicals legislation and enhanced ingredient transparency. Jennifer McPartland is the lead author of EDF's report, Smart. She is a senior scientist in EDF's health program, working to reduce exposures to harmful chemicals. She's currently working on the implementation of the recently reformed Toxic Substances Control Act, the emergence of new predictive chemical testing methods, and on driving market leadership on safer chemicals. Finally, Marty Mulvihill is the co-founder and a partner in Safer Made, a mission-driven venture capital fund investing in companies and technologies that reduce human exposure to harmful chemicals. Marty is also a researcher and advisor at the Berkeley Center for Green Chemistry, which he helped create and where he served as the initial executive director for 5 years. Marty's research has focused on developing technologies that help provide access to clean drinking water and the creation of safer chemicals and materials, resulting in a number of publications and patents. So before we begin, I have a few housekeeping announcements. First, please feel free to submit any questions that you have during the presentations directly into the chat box on the webinar dashboard. During the audience Q&A part of our presentation today, we'll turn towards those questions and answer as many as time permits. At the end of the presentation, we will share speakers' contact information should anyone like to connect with them directly. A recording of this presentation, along with the slides, will be available on our Supply Chain Solutions Center website within 24 hours. And then finally, as a reminder, we'll be hosting webinars on a variety of other sustainable supply chain solutions for the foreseeable future, and I'll preview those at the end of today's webinar. So now I'd like to turn it over to our panelists for their insights on safer chemicals innovation. Zach, why don't you lead us off?
Great. Yep. Happy to do it. So thank you very much, Boma. And what I thought I would do is just share a little bit of Walmart's entry into this space and just why it's important to us. So Walmart had been working on sustainability for a while, really kind of starting in 2005. And chemicals was one of the first 10 areas that we identified as an area of opportunity alongside areas like agriculture and packaging. And so we knew it was a complicated space, but we knew it was important for our customer and something that we wanted to invest our time in to try to develop a policy around. And so in 2014, Walmart launched our first sustainable chemistry policy in the consumables category. And you can see here on the screen that it's made up of 3 pillars of what we think are very key areas of sustainable chemistry. And as a retailer, it's our job to try to help paint the picture and send that signal to the companies that we do business with on behalf of our customers. And so we selected these 3 areas: transparency and how we can share more ingredient information with our customer, ingredient information that our customers want to see. The second pillar on not only the transparency side, but advancing safer formulation. So what can we do to try to encourage better chemicals used in our products through informed substitution principles? And then the last pillar being focused on safer choice. And what can we do to encourage more of our safer choice products to be placed on the shelf? And all of this with really the key message of our commitment to everyday low cost and performance, because we can't sacrifice cost or efficacy in these changes. And so we knew that would be a challenge to try to tackle. But we firmly believe that customers shouldn't have to choose between products that they can afford and products that are better for them and the environment. And so with this as our key message, it's allowed us to really try to push in all 3 of these different fronts. And if you go to the next slide, I think we've been able to make some really good progress on this. And it really matters and fits in with our approach to become the most trusted retailer in the world. And that's our goal. And so that's our aspiration. And we think this is a really key part of that goal. So last year, in the middle pillar of the safer formulation, we were happy to work with EDF on some of this work. We were able to announce that we had reduced 95% by weight of our high priority chemicals, which were 8 selected chemicals that we've got publicly available on our website if you want to learn more. But by doing this, we received some pretty good press over it, and I think the recognition that and it's really the brands and the companies we do business with that really started to advance their work here. And so we were very proud of that. We were proud of that reduction, and so we wanted to talk about it, and we wanted to build trust in our company and our brand. The second slide in the middle there is a pretty interesting slide. It's going through our Walmart's progress in sustainability. This was presented by our CEO, Doug McMillon, last year in our analyst meeting, our financial analyst meeting that we do once a year. And it was shown right after we talked about our ambition to be the most trusted retailer. So this is a key portion of what we think builds trust for the customer. And we're excited to be able to make progress on this topic, and we hope to make more. And the last part is just external recognition. We know the space is complicated, but it's really helpful to have trusted partners like EDF and others to be able to tell the story and share more about what it took to deliver the goals and what future work needs to be done in order to make more progress. So thanks, Boma.
Thank you, Zach. It's great to hear Walmart's ambition in this space and to see the progress that's happened so far. Martin, I think the audience would enjoy hearing your thoughts from a brand perspective.
Certainly. Thank you, Boma, and good afternoon, everyone. What I will try to do in the next 5 minutes is explain why seventh generation is compelled to use safer chemicals and ways in which we design our products to incorporate safer chemicals into them, and finally, how our supply chain is critical to our success in doing this. On the next slide, you should see our company name, Seventh Generation, and also the basis for our name, which is the great law of the Iroquois Confederacy, that in our every deliberation, we consider the impact of our decisions on the next 7 generations. This is fundamental to the way we think as a company. And in thinking this way, we are compelled to think about the safety of the people who use our products, as well as the preservation of the earth that gives us the raw materials for these products. In the next slide, we have what are called our aspirations. These are the things we hope to achieve by conducting our business. And they are to, in the first part, nurture nature. We want to make sure that the environment that we have today, or perhaps even an improved environment, is available for the next 7 generations. We want to see circularity in the materials we use, making sure that we are using resources that can be renewed and come from renewed sources like bio-base or recycled stream, and use them in a way in which they can be reused by others, either through biodegradation and reincorporation into nature, or through inclusion in a recycling stream. We also want to build the communities with whom we work, be that the communities of 7th generation, or the communities in which we are located, or the communities defined by our value chain. We also want to enhance health, which gets to the nature of the chemicals we use in our products and the nature of the products themselves, and importantly, gets to the issue of education. We think it's critically important that people who use our products understand why we design them the way we do, so that they can apply that philosophy to their purchase of other products as well as our own. And finally, if 7th generation alone did these things, it would not have a great impact in the world. We will have impact by transforming the way commerce is conducted. And so one of our aspirations is to see other companies consider their chemical selection in the same way we do, and to try to achieve the same nurturing of nature, building of communities, and enhancing of health that we hope to achieve. In the design of our products, which is shown in the next slide, we consider 4 basic things. Like all companies, we're concerned about the cost and performance of our products. If people pay a premium price for our products, which they often do, they are going to want to see premium performance. When people, to use an analogy, buy a Cadillac, they expect Cadillac performance. And if they're buying a Nova or a Spectrum, whatever the other General Motors equivalent is, they understand they're going to be making some compromises because they're paying a lower price. In addition, we know that we have to consider the health of the individual and the impact of our products on people's health, and also the impacts of our products on nature. Certainly, all companies meet environmental and human health regulations in the design of their products, but we think those are levels of entry for doing business. They don't represent the highest ambitions that we should have for the products that we make. And hence, we have sets of policies and standards that help guide our product design with regard to human health and nurturing nature. And these are given in the next slides. In terms of protecting human health, there are two things we consider. One is acute harm that could be done. We try to make products that are not acutely toxic, so that if they're accidentally ingested, there's minimal risk of harm, that are not irritating to the skin, etc. And also we try to manage chronic harm that can come from the use of chronically toxic chemicals like carcinogens, mutagens, etc. These are allowed to be used in commerce as long as you can show that there is a minimum risk to the user, but we feel it's better not to use these chemicals in the first place than have to worry about how a consumer is using your product. The next slide shows some of the things we do to protect the environment. We don't use volatile organic chemicals except for the fragrances in our products. We don't use phosphates or chlorine in our products. Our products are bio-based and biodegradable so that we can participate in nature's carbon cycle and see these materials get used and used over again. Because many of our products go down the drain, we want to have a low aquatic toxicity. And when we do use fragrances, we only use fragrances from natural essential oils. To achieve these things, we rely very heavily on our supply chain. By setting these standards, we are sending a signal to our suppliers about what types of products they want to provide to us. And we have seen suppliers respond to this by increasing the bio-based content in the materials and ingredients that they sell us. But we have also seen them reformulate products to help us meet our goals. We did not buy from certain manufacturers who were preserving their surfactants with formaldehyde or with something called Kathon, to preservative systems that we do not use. And we have found that they were willing to change their preservative systems to meet our needs. So those are some of the things that we do to make our products as safe as possible. And it's why it's important to us to have safer chemicals available to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Martin. I think it was really helpful for everyone to hear how a mission-driven company like Seventh Generation really infuses each aspect of its processes and products with that mission. So Jennifer, as the lead author of the Smart Innovation Report, could you share with us how EDF approaches safer chemicals innovation?
Absolutely. So thank you, Boma, and thanks to all the participants joining today's webinar. At EDF, we see greater transparency and sharing of information as critical to creating a healthier marketplace that we all desire. The goal of EDF's Smart Innovation Project was not to rank or pick winners and losers among a set of preservatives. Our ambition was much more fundamental. It was to demonstrate how systematically compiled and presented health and safety information enables safer chemical and product innovation. Next slide, please. This type of information empowers actors all along the supply chain to make informed, meaningful decisions, whether that's setting design targets for new chemical R&D, making chemical selection decisions during product development, or prioritizing information gaps for additional data development. In fact, access to comprehensive health and safety information is an essential feature of EDF's fourth pillar of business leadership for safer chemicals product design, which is essentially a company's roadmap to safer innovation. The Smart Innovation Project applied a three-step approach. First, identify a chemical functional class with a strong innovation demand signal. We ultimately chose preservatives used in personal care products. Second, systematically assess a representative subset of chemicals in that class using the green screen methodology, which evaluates chemicals across 18 human health and environmental endpoints. And third, examine and identify hazard trends and data gaps across the chemicals evaluated. As part of this work, we also convened a leading group of preservative suppliers and product manufacturers to provide their firsthand insight and input into our work. Next slide, please. Our analyses identified both hazard trends and data gaps across the preservatives we evaluated. Key hazard hotspots included skin irritation and sensitization, particularly noteworthy given the direct and repeated dermal contact of products like lotions that contain these preservatives, eye irritation, and toxicity to aquatic organisms, which can also present concerns given the widespread use of preservatives and their potential for direct release into the environment. Frequently encountered data gaps included endocrine activity, respiratory sensitization, and neurotoxicity. These observations point to areas for targeted innovation as well as data development. And extensive discussions of our analyses is available in the full report, including the need to consider other important variables such as antimicrobial efficacy during preservative innovation. Next slide. So our report, we believe, is a valuable resource to those involved in personal care product innovation, and we're pleased to share that we've already had a number of companies reach out to tell us as much. We also see our analyses as being useful in collaborative initiatives, such as the Green Chemistry and Commerce Council's Preservative Innovation Crowdsourcing Challenge, which is a really exciting project that launched just this past April. However, as I mentioned before, the purpose of EDF's Smart Innovation Project was much greater than delving into the toxicity of a set of preservatives. We believe that this type of effort truly is a powerful way to unlock innovation in the supply chain and should be scaled to cover many more chemicals. In fact, a major recommendation made in our report is to create a chemicals assessment clearinghouse. Such a clearinghouse would serve as a significant resource to various actors along the supply chain looking to move the dial on safer chemistry, whether as a chemical innovator looking to set design criteria or to show how a new chemistry represents an improvement over the status quo, as a product manufacturer searching for safer product formulation and fabrication options, or as a retailer interested in understanding what alternatives may be available for chemicals that they are looking to move away from. Assessments from the clearinghouse would also indicate where toxicity data are lacking or insufficient, and therefore where additional data development is needed to acquire a complete understanding of potential chemical toxicity. Again, I'd like to thank all those who contributed to this report, including Tox Services, who actually conducted the green screen assessments. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that overview. And finally, Marty, you have a unique perspective straddling both academia and the venture capitalist world. It would be great to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Yes, thank you very much, Boma, and thank you everyone for why I think there is a bright future for safer chemistry, and that we will get there through collaboration and sharing information along both with retailers and manufacturers, but also with leading environmental health organizations like EDF. What we do at Safer Made is invest in the future chemistry solutions that are inherently safer for human health and the environment. And we came to the venture capital model not right away, but actually through a very measured process of stakeholder engagement and examining what is needed in this ecosystem to bring and scale safer chemistry. So as we took a look at what's going on out there, we saw that there was consumer demand and that retailers were taking action. We saw that leading companies were already putting out there what their innovation needs were and opportunities were, and that there's been a ton of excellent work done on characterizing what the chemicals of concern are. And our goal was, how do we support things that are not regrettable substitutions? How do we make sure that we're providing the new solutions that are, in fact, inherently safer for human health and the environment? And so one of the things that we did early on, and you can see this on the next slide, is talk to folks like Martin and Zach and their colleagues in other leading organizations to get a sense for what the innovation opportunities are across all consumer product sectors. So the recent report from EDF, just like Jennifer said, it's a great start, and it focused particularly on formulated products. A group of folks who committed to the environment business model. People want to get out there and
Okay. Hey, Marty, are you still there?
Yes, I am, but it went on mute somehow. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. I think it would be good to go back to some of your earlier remarks.
Excellent. So we see that across consumer product sectors, there are opportunities for innovation. Some of them are specific chemicals and the replacement of specific chemicals of concern, like preservatives, or in apparel, like the replacement of perfluorinated chemistries for durable water repellents with something that's non-fluorinated. There are also opportunities that are more systemic. So we heard Martin mention, and I think Zach as well, packaging is another opportunity where a lot of resources, materials, and chemicals end up being used and causing damage to human health and the environment. That's another opportunity for safer chemicals innovation, one that crosses sectors. Similarly, when we look in the apparel world, moving to waterless processing technologies, so that, one, you don't use as much water, but oftentimes these sustainability trends have co-benefits. If you're not using water, you're also not discharging chemical-filled water out into the environment. And that's an important thing to remember, is we work and focus on human health at Safer Made, but we're aware that this is a bigger piece of a part of the bigger sustainability challenge. And we think that by starting to make gains.
Hey, Marty, are you still there?
On there, we also see this as being the sort of stories that, yep,
Okay.
I am still here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well now. Thank you.
All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully, everyone has managed to see that what we see is that there are these innovation opportunities across a number of consumer product sectors. So I'll not belabor the point anymore and go to the next slide, which tells you a little bit about our approach. Not only are we looking for chemical replacements that are both systemic as well as individual improvements. If you go to the next slide, you can see that the approach we take is focusing on function. And we like to focus on function rather than single chemical substitution, because it actually opens the opportunity to involve a lot more people. So when I was an academic at Berkeley, very much involved with green chemistry centers across the country, I knew, I was often seeing exciting work being done in 3 or 4 places. But we didn't necessarily, as chemists, have the solution to a particular problem. What I see now at Safer Made is that by taking a functional approach, we actually engage a much broader range of people who are both academics, but also who have come from the industry to address the problems that they already see. Evaluate over 200 companies in the last year, including that are developing safer preservatives or antimicrobials of one sort or another. And we've done this because instead of just looking under the lamppost with people who call themselves green chemists, we've broadened our search. We've gone to historical centers of innovation. So in textiles, we spend time in North Carolina and Georgia looking for new polymers. We spend time in the Northeast. And we've been really excited to find folks that might not have self-identified as a member of our green chemistry community, really doing some excellent research and development of safer alternatives. So I really encourage folks, as we're thinking about how to define the solutions to these hazardous chemicals, to think in function and think in design, because these are the ways to engage the broadest number of people and get the most solutions to the table. And I think that's where the real opportunity lies going forward, not chemical for chemical substitution, but redesigning of products so we can have that cost and performance without the hazardous chemicals. So sorry for the technical difficulties, and thank you for the time.
Thanks, Marty, especially for those final insights that you had. So I think we are already off to a good start. Let's move into a few questions for the panelists. So first, I have a couple of questions, and then we'll open it up for the audience members. Zach and Martin, this one's for you guys. What have you been hearing from your customers in terms of ingredient and product safety?
Zach, do you want to go first, or would you like me to just jump in? Oh, since I don't hear Jack, I'll just jump in. I want to relay a little anecdote. About 10 years ago, we were buying a surfactant that had a trace amount of a chemical called 1,4-dioxane in it, which is a known carcinogen, and we took steps to get that number as low as we could. And then an organization called the Organic Consumers Association analyzed 100 products and found 1,4-dioxane in most of them, including ours. And we looked at the numbers, and there were some companies up in 100 ppm contamination and some about 20 ppm contamination, including some other green companies. And then there we were, about 1.5 ppm contamination, which is what we expected. And we said, aren't we great? Well, that lasted about one day when our phones started ringing and our customers said, we don't even want 1 ppm in there. So we reformulated our products to get rid of 1,4-dioxane completely, but also learned a lesson that consumers don't really believe in risk assessment as a sufficient tool for their safety, and they want companies to not formulate with chronically toxic materials. And that, when we thought about it, is really what we should have been doing from the beginning. And so that is now how our formulation is guided. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you,
Martin.
Zach. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to add that, Martin. That's a great story, and I think that is along the lines of what we hear, right? I think customers do want to have a trust in the brands that they're buying, the products that they're buying, and I think and Seventh Generation is a good example of that, that brand with a purpose that I think consumers rally behind and believe in, which is great. And I think not eroding that trust is important, and maintaining that what you stand for. And I think, one of the trends we see right now, which I think it just will lead to more and more in safer chemistry, but it's around transparency. And it's probably not just on consumables, it's on food, it's on other areas where consumers just want to know more and more about their products. They want to feel good about their purchase, and they want to learn more. And I think, by sharing the transparency and ingredients specifically, I do think that is going to inherently drive more sustainable materials used, which is a good thing. And so I think that's the trend right now. I mean, I think it is hard for us. I mean, I think most customers probably don't know about 1,4-dioxane as an example. But I do think it's that age is coming where consumers have access to more information. They have more third parties that they listen to and read about to make judgments on the products that they buy. And so I think, you know, it's our job to try to help prepare our shelf for that. And we think, you know, the transparency and safer chemistry is something that is of continued importance.
All right, thank you both very much. Next, I want to ask Marty, what do you think some of the biggest hurdles are on the R&D side, and how does that tie into SaferMade's theory of victory?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Boma. I think that there are two exciting areas for R&D research that'll both accelerate eventual victory for safer chemicals. The first really is on rapid production of high quality health and safety data. So we're very excited, and we take a class-based approach where, you know, we don't invest in alternatives that are either known harmful chemicals but also not even ones that are in a similar chemical class. And we think that's a proactive way to get at these things. But an even better way would be to have actual health and safety data right up front, because the earlier you have that information, the easier it is to change your molecule, to change your formulation, to change your design, so that you can get to where we all want to go, which is inherently safer. And the second piece of that is, where are we going to get these new molecules? So the other exciting area for research, you know, as Martin mentioned, for 7th generation, bio-based is a big driver. When I look at who's actually creating new molecules, it's often folks who are trying to use biomass or fermentation technologies to make new molecules. In the past, they've focused on petroleum-like molecules or drop-in replacements, and increasingly what we need to get to are ways of turning biological feedstocks into functional ingredients. And I think that's another exciting area. So if you combine those two, that gets us to SaferMade winning, which is all of us having safer ingredients and products that we can get on store shelves.
Great, thank you, Marty. Jennifer, now I'd like to know, what advice does EDF have for businesses trying to lead in this space?
Well, obviously, follow EDF's pillars of leadership for safer chemicals in the marketplace. but in all seriousness, I think that there really are two critical activities that help set businesses up for success in this space. And the first, I would say, is do a self-assessment. Figure out where you are today in terms of your chemical footprint. Determine whether or not you have the institutional buy-in that you need for success. Take a assessment of whether or not you have access to the right information and tools to make smart decisions around chemicals. Think about what else needs to be in place to make, you know, even more progress. And then the second thing I'd say is, if you haven't done this already, is to develop clear objectives around safer chemistry with timeframes that make sense for where you are along your journey. You know, businesses and companies are all many are all interested in this space, and they're at different points along their own process for continuous improvement. And so for some businesses, a first step might be just determining what chemicals are present in your product portfolio, or taking a look at the types of RSLs that peer companies are putting together. And then for those further along, it might mean creating, you know, pretty quantitative metrics of success and reporting out on those objectives that you set out. I would say, in terms of how EDF can help, I take a look at the content that we've put together on our Behind the Label web pages, and then of course always feel free to reach out to have a conversation with us. I think we're always interested to hear from folks and what they're doing in this space and what their interests and initiatives are, and we're always happy to sort of share our perspectives and ideas where they're helpful.
Great, thank you. All right, so this will be, oh, wait, can I mention one more thing?
Oh, yes,
do you mind?
Yeah. One other thing I'd be remiss if I did not mention is on that earlier point I made about, one of the major recommendations of the report, we are continuing to pursue further work around increased information sharing along the supply chain via something like a chemicals assessment clearinghouse and possibly other means. So for those on the line, stay tuned for more on that front.
Okay. All right, so this one I'm putting out to all of the panelists for a rapid fire answer. What one or two things do you think would make a significant difference in terms of overcoming obstacles in this space? You know, everyone has talked about the ambitions and the real desire to help the industry transform. So, and we know there are some obstacles. So what are a couple things that you think would be significant? And maybe we'll just go in the previous order we had before. Zach and Martin, if you have answers for this one.
So this is Martin. I have two rapid fire answers. One is disclosure to consumers. A scientist at a major brand once said to me, we will never disclose that there are harmful chemicals in our products to consumers. And I think once they're forced to, they'll get those chemicals out. And the other is knowledge and communication along the supply chain. You know, the more we can tell our suppliers what we want and show there's a demand for it, the more they'll change the chemicals they are supplying to us. And one other is we often look at specifically what we're doing, but we live in an imperfect world, and it's really necessary to recognize we have to change a lot of the infrastructure that's been established in our world. The example I'll use was news released this week that there's glyphosate in Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Well, it's not there because Ben & Jerry's puts it there or wants glyphosate as an ingredient. It's there because we allowed the widespread use of harmful chemicals. And if we were willing as a society to create an infrastructure that didn't need that type of chemical overuse, then Ben & Jerry's could spend time developing new flavors instead of worrying about where the glyphosate is coming from.
Yeah,
Anyone else? Oh yeah, Zach, go ahead.
I won't repeat the disclosure one because I think that's definitely important in this day and age. I think with the access to information that customers have, I think that this is an area that they're looking for more information, and disclosure is absolutely important. But you know, and it was really great to hear from Marty, because I think that, you know, continue the pipeline of sustainable innovation. And you know, I think that's one of the risks we see, is that, you know, sometimes our consumers move faster than the science is able to catch up to with their really what they're wanting out of a product. And we know sustainable innovation takes time, and you know, we want to make sure and use the right substitutes that are indeed better. So I would just say, I think, you know, significant difference, you know, continue the pipeline of sustainable innovation, because we know our customers headed there, and we want to be ready.
Great. Marty, Jennifer, do you guys want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I'll hop in real quick to, you know, assuming we get what was laid out by Martin and Zach, I think we will need more funding to support these alternatives, and that funding takes all different forms. It's more, you know, talking to federal agencies about the importance of supporting safer and sustainable chemistry research. It's tiny compared to things like global warming and energy research. And like I said before, they're all tied together. So I think we need to make people aware of the fact that materials and molecules are at the base of the pyramid if we want to solve any of these problems. And then the second piece is really about people willing to try new things. That's what I love about 7th Generation, Walmart. You're really getting out there and taking a risk. And as Jennifer said earlier, putting goals out there so that that will drive the activity. If there's funding and there's goals, we will get answers.
Jennifer, any last comments?
Yeah, I think maybe two things I'd put out there are, one, sort of figuring out the business models so that there's more sharing of chemical health and safety information across the supply chain. And then the other thing, I think maybe even building off of what something something that Marty had said earlier, is over time onboarding more rapid and predictive chemical testing approaches that allow us to screen chemicals more quickly for promising new chemistries, and then also allow us maybe to fail faster to keep the ones that would be harmful from entering the market. So,
okay, thank you. So I will now open it up to audience questions. As a reminder, you could put your questions in the chat box. Do we have any questions all lined up?
Unmuted.
Hi, Boma. This is Amy. We have a question from the audience. And what suggestions or next steps do you have for government agencies?
Okay.
This is Jennifer. I'll take a crack at that. I would be remiss if I did not say continued strong implementation of the recently reformed Toxic Substances Control Act. That's a priority for us, and I think if implemented the way that it was designed to be human health protective, we could had some real gains there. The other thing that I'd say, I think just building off again of what Marty had mentioned earlier, is continued funding to the agencies and from the agencies on this issue of chemicals, both in terms of assessing their risk as well as continued support for programs like Safer Choice, which is trying to sort of have a carrot side of what the regulatory agency does, in addition to the more regulatory traditional activities that they do. So continued funding, strong implementation of TSCA.
Anyone else want to add?
Share data. They're part of the ecosystem, and to the degree possible, making sure that, and I know this is under TSCA, but just taking it one step more broad, to the degree that they have data about chemicals in products and the environment, making that data open and easily accessible is an important piece of driving progress so that academics aren't repeating work.
Yeah, good point. Okay, do we have another question?
One of the questions is, how did EDF choose the preservatives it chose in the PIP report?
Excellent.
Yeah, certainly. So I guess there were two inputs into that decision. First, on our own, we did a sort of a landscape analysis of preservatives that are typically found or that can be found in lotions in particular, because we were interested in looking at those preservatives where there would be direct dermal contact. And what that basically meant was mining major brands' websites for when they were listed, those ingredients, the preservatives in those products. So we did a lot of online research. And then the other input was, again, from those product manufacturers and preservative suppliers I mentioned during my remarks. So they were incredibly helpful in helping us distill down several dozen preservatives that we had identified through our online research to ones that they thought would be good candidates for this particular project. So they had an important role to play in that selection as well.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Actually, we don't have time.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Okay, all right. Well, I think it's a testament to we had some really great insights from all of our panelists today and a full house. So I think this has been a great discussion. I'd like to thank our excellent panelists one more time: Zach Fries, Jennifer McPartland, Martin Wolf, and Marty Mulvihill. I'd also like to give a brief shout out to the organizations that helped inform EDF's Smart Innovation Report: Seventh Generation, Beauty Counter, Clariant, Active Micro Technologies, and the Green Chemistry and Commerce Council. And last but not least, Tox Services for their great research and chemical assessment. Before we leave, everyone, I think it's important to reiterate that the market transformation that we all seek, safer ingredients, safer products, and that our panelists spoke so eloquently about today, will take time but is achievable. It's achievable through strategies that are science-based, systems-oriented, and collaborative. At EDF, we pride ourselves on our 25-year history of helping companies identify improvement opportunities such as this one, and then rolling up our sleeves to help business make it happen. So please reach out if you'd like to continue the conversation or learn more about our report, which is available at edf.org/preservatives. Okay, and now for a plug for the continuation of our Greening the Global Shopping Cart series. We have 2 more coming up that should be really exciting. One on August 16th about climate smart ag, and another one on September 13th called Greening Your Freight Moves. Again, I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for joining us today, and have a good rest of the day.